Hi, I'm Wade from Thoroughbred Diesel, and today we're going to be installing a VP44 pump. This is a big video for us. Installing a VP44 was the first, well, one of the first videos that we did here at Thoroughbred Diesel, and it's really what led us into this whole thing that we have now with a YouTube channel and installation videos weekly and stuff for you. So VP44 trucks are obviously very near and dear to our heart. It is a niche that Thoroughbred Diesel has fallen into, and it is one that we are absolutely very honored and proud to be in with you guys. Since our filming of our first video, VP44 video, which was around 2008, we have since branded our own VP44 pump, which is another thing that we're very proud of. And we wanted to revisit the VP44 installation, because back when we did our first video, we actually had to break it into two videos. It was so long, and technology, all the things. So today what we're going to do is we're going to condense that. We're going to get our VP44 installation video into one video, and we're going to show you all the things that you need to know and all the things that we have learned since then that's going to make this a better installation for you, answer all your questions about VP44 failures, what will keep you from having another VP44 failures, and all the goodness that is VP44. So let's go ahead and get started with our installation. I want to talk about the VP44 trucks, and I want to talk about Thoroughbred's VP44 pump for just a little bit. Now, at the time of our first filming of this was 2008, so trucks were just creeping up on 10 years old then, which is really nothing. Now they're 20 years old, 20 plus years old. These trucks are now finding their way through the cycle of life of trucks, and maybe even being more restored now. We're seeing a lot more of that. Guys are doing full restorations on them as far as body panels and things like that goes. There's a full aftermarket of body panels for these trucks, so you can put one of these back to absolutely pristine condition. Now, Thoroughbred's pumps, we say that to say that the pump that we offer here at Thoroughbred Diesel is going to carry you through years of service. Now, we talk about the two different pumps that we offer here. We offer a 2-year warranty pump, and we offer a 1-year warranty pump. What's the differences in the two? Both our 2-year pump and our 1-year warranty pump have the exact same set of test stand sequences they go through, the exact same calibration regimen. So as far as testing and verification goes, our two pumps are exactly one and the same. However, as far as the remanufacturing process goes, our 1-year pump has more remanufactured products on it, or more remanufactured components on it, than our 2-year pump does. Our 2-year pump has more fully new products on it than the 1-year pump does. So that's why we're able, with our 2-year pump, to offer you a little bit longer warranty on it. Now, as far as those two go, and to tie this back in with what I was talking about now, how more of these pumps are making their way as to restorations and things like that, you can choose between those two pumps as to what you want to do with the truck and the longevity that you're looking for to get out of the vehicle that you've purchased. But now people are still purchasing these vehicles for the same thing. This is kind of a lower cost alternative diesel truck for you to put in your driveway if you just bought yourself a 5th wheel camper, or you're going to be doing more towing, or you've gotten into farming or hobby farming, something like that. You bought yourself a diesel truck, you went with a lower cost alternative. You went with a good truck that's very stout, very time proven, but we all know that the Achilles heel of the VP44 truck is the VP44. So we've worked hard to correct that high failure rate that they have in these trucks, and we think that you're going to like the pump that we offer out here in the market today. So now we're going to go ahead and get started with our installation. All right, before you start the installation of the VP44 pump, I definitely suggest that you take both of the cables off of both batteries on the truck. And the reason for that is, on the driver's side, that's where you're going to be concentrating as far as doing your installation. You're going to be flailing around up there. You don't want to hit one of the cables. You don't want to make contact with cables, arc anything off of it, and backfeed into this. ECMs are really sensitive on this truck, so I definitely suggest anytime you do something electrical on one of these vehicles, you just isolate the batteries, take the battery cables off of it, be done with it. It takes a couple of minutes and might save you a bunch of money. All right, we're gonna go ahead and take the air intake horn off now. We're going to remove the air intake horn and the intercooler tube in one piece. You don't have to do this at home. If you're doing a VP44 installation, all you really need to do is just go ahead and loosen up this clamp and remove the air intake horn from it. The VP44 will come off totally with this air intake horn on it, but for us, for filming purposes, we're going to bring it all out in one shot today All right, so we're gonna go ahead and take these 10 metrics off on the air intake horn. You have a 10 metric right here that is for the oil gauge. Dipstick, as we call them. There are two long 10 metric bolts, and then there's some short 10 metrics closest to the valve cover. There is a grounding wire for the air intake heater that is on the front bolt. All right. Now, we went ahead and got this loose from the intercooler boot down at the intercooler itself. However, what we wanted to show you here was we left all this clamped, and the reason why we did that was those connections, again, this is talking in terms of 20-year-old trucks, are going to be tight in the intercooler boot. You're going to fight with it. So if you leave all of this connected together, you can use this for leverage if you don't drop your tools in the engine bay. So we've already got it. It's ready to come out. Just sneak it past the oil gauge, and voila. And on the back side of it, there is a wiring harness for the air intake heater. Just go ahead and pop the push pin out of it. Bring your intake horn out. So now that we have our intake horn off, what we want to do is we want to go ahead and get our intake air heater out of our way, and then we're also going to move our throttle position sensor, bell crank sensor. We're going to move it out of the way as well. So starting with our grid heater has thermal gaskets on it. I definitely suggest replacing these when you do this installation. There will be a gasket on the top of the grid heater, then there will be a gasket underneath of the grid heater as well. This gasket has been changed on this truck, so it's not the actual thermal gasket you get from Cummins. You'll notice it's kind of a silvery color, so you definitely want to make sure that you replace those. So you can just fold this intake heater over out of your way. And that gasket's in good shape. It's not going anywhere right there, so I'm going to leave it be. I want to stuff a rag inside the intake just in case you drop a tool or something and it doesn't go rolling to the back. So next, we're going to get our bell crank sensor out of the way. Throttle position sensor, 13 metric on it. On the bottom of the sensor is a electrical connection. So before you get overzealous when you're flipping it out of your way, know that there's a connection there. But I'm going to go ahead and loosen, or go ahead and remove this. Take these three 13 metric bolts off of it. That way I can get to that connection a little easier. And you'll see as I roll that over, it gives you a little bit better access to the connector. Don't forget to reconnect this when you go to start the truck back, because if you don't, you won't have any throttle. And then there's a push clip on the bottom of it. You just need to go ahead and pop it out, just like so. And then you can lay your TPS sensor over and out of your way. Now that gives us our first really good look at the VP44 itself. One of the first steps when we actually begin removing the VP44 itself is to go ahead, and what I like to do is I like to remove the fuel canister, because you can remove the fuel line if you would like to, and that totally will get you enough access to be able to get everything out of the way. I just go ahead and remove the fuel canister, especially on these 98, 99 trucks. It's just easier to get to it. It's just easier for you to have access to everything right there, especially if you're going to wind up go ahead and doing a tappet cover on these trucks. Then you can totally do, you can totally just take the fuel filter canister out of the way and pull it all out in one shot. So to prep to get ready for that, I just go ahead and open the water and fuel drain and let the fuel drain out of the canister. While it's doing that, we'll start working on getting everything ready to take it out. On the 9899s, you've got a fuel heater. So you just go ahead and pop the wiring harness off there and unhook the main connection right here. All right, and then I'll go ahead and take the PSG connection off on our VP44 and get it out of our way, like so. Then that's going to show us our fuel inlet and fuel return line, which is closest to the radiator. It's going to give us a good look at those. So 11/16 for these, and you want to have a big enough pan underneath the truck to catch the residual fuel that's going to come out of the pump, because you will lose a little bit here as well. So we're going to take our fuel inlet bolt out first. And we're going to go ahead and let the pump drain. Now, the fuel inlet bolt has got a banjo washer on both sides of it. So we just take the bolt out, and we'll get rid of those washers in a second, but there's the bolt out of it. Now I can bring the fuel filter canister out with the line still on it. So I'm just going to go ahead and take the inlet line loose, just like so. And I'll sneak the fuel filter canister out of it like that. So same thing here, another fuel inlet bolt, the banjo washer. Make sure you get that as well. They're the same size bolt, so you don't have to worry about getting them mixed up. It's no problem. So we are ready to go ahead and remove the canister. Now the 98 and the 99s, the fuel lines will be on the top. The 2000s will have a different orientation of the fuel lines, but the theory here is still the same. 210 metrics on the intake manifold that hold the fuel bowl to the intake manifold. And we'll go ahead and loosen them up and remove them, like so. Before you take the fuel bowl out, you want to close the water and fuel drain. Then you want to disconnect the water and fuel sensor. Make sure that you've got your fuel heater disconnected as well. And then she comes out in one assembly. All right, in this portion we're going to remove the overflow valve, which is something that we require for you to return with your core with our pumps. And we're also going to remove the injection lines from this side of the pump, the outboard side or the driver's side, like a better word for the pump. Now, on this side of the pump, you have cylinders number 1, 3, and 4, and they come off in a pack, and we're going to show you that. So we're going to show you that here in this shot right now. Actually, I was just tracing that back because this is cylinder number 4. So a little random information there for you. So we're going to go ahead and remove our overflow valve. Remember, this gets returned with your core, so make sure that you do not lose it. You will be getting a new one in your core, and you will lose fuel here. So again, make sure your pan is underneath of the truck. You will be getting new washers for that as well. Now, on this return line, I like to talk about this. This is one of the lines on the truck that if you put a lot of pressure against it, see, it's rigid right there, and it's going into a 3-way T at the back of the head that brings you your return line coming from the head, and then the continuation of the return line that goes to the tank for all the return, the high side return fuel to go to the tank. It makes a 3-way T back there. That's rigid. So if you leave this line like this and just don't disturb it, it'll be fine. But if you go to pushing on it and knocking on it, what it's going to do is it's going to put undue pressure on that three-way T back there, you're going to wind up with a leak. What does the leak get you? Well, usually doesn't get you an outward fuel leak on the outside of the truck, but what it will do is it will break the circuit for the fuel, for lack of a better word, and you'll start getting a hard start. So we always tell people, if you get a hard start after one of these, go through all your high side lines, make sure everything's trued up. Not, you may have to replace that line. So we're going to keep from doing that today. All right, we're going to go ahead and remove the number 1, 2, and 4 injection lines from the pump. Now you're going to ask why we're going to be doing that. The injection lines on a VP44 truck are in 2 different bundles. The number 1, 2, and 4 are in a bundle, and then the number 3, 5, and 6 are in this bundle here as well. You don't want to remove these lines one at a time. They come off in a nice pack of 3, get them out of your way. Then we'll show you what we do with the other ones to take the pump off. But the 1, 2, and 4 are in a nice pack here, and they've got these isolators on them. Do not disturb the isolators, don't take them apart. You don't need to do any of that for any reason. You want to leave those alone. So we're going to go ahead and remove these lines from the injection pump. Now the number 1, 2, and 4 injection line are the very bottom line, the next line out, and the next line up from that. So we're going to go ahead and loosen those up. And when you're working with the nuts around the VP44, what you want to do is you want to go ahead and loosen the nut and then push it back and get it out of your way. This gives you access to get a wrench in here to your next fuel nut, and it just makes everything much, much easier. So loosen them and move them out of your way. And remember, try to not put a lot of undue pressure on the that return line right there. So we're going to get the number, get this line off here. All right. Then we want to go ahead and remove them from the head side. So we're going to go ahead and get one. Pay special attention to these two as well as when these lines are coming out. After you get a couple revolutions on them, they should run out by hand. If they don't, you want to check the threads and you want to check the alignment to the feed tubes. Not having proper alignment on the feed tubes can cause you hard starts as well. The number 4 coming out. Alrighty. Alright. So there is that. So now we'll be removing the 3 10 metric bolts. There's one here at the front, one here, and one there. We'll be removing these hold down bolts. And this pack of 3 lines just pops right off just like that, and you just sit it out of the truck and out of your way. All right, we're going to go ahead and take the other high pressure lines off of our pump now, and this is just getting this pump prepped for removal. So what you want to do here is you want to start with your top line and go ahead and loosen it, and then next you want to do the bottom one. And the reason for that is it just gives you a little bit more room for articulation of your wrench. And then you actually come back to the middle one. And it can be a booger to get to, so take your time. Now, with all 3 of those lines loosened up, all you do is just push them away from the pump and get them out of your way. And what that's going to do, and you don't want to make a bunch of pressure on these. Like I said, don't put a bunch of undue pressure on it. You just need enough clearance there to when you go to push the pump off, you can just put a little bit of pressure on it and that pump will slide right past it as it comes out. It doesn't need a whole lot of room, just enough to get past it. So you can leave them right there just like that, leave them attached, don't loosen them up. They'll be just fine. Okay, these are going to be hard shots for us to get. So we've already got our the step before this. We took our high side lines off of the truck. What we're trying to do now is we're going to be accessing the pump nut and lock washer on the front of the pump at the pump gear. We're going to show you how to move the pump keyway to the 12 o'clock position, and we're going to talk about that as we work on it. So the first thing we're going to do is we have our oil oil blow-by filter here, or our oil canister that's on the front of these trucks. It has a long tube that goes down into a catch bottle for the oils. On this truck it's missing. They will be on a lot of the trucks that you work on. So we want to just go ahead and get this tube off of the canister. Sorry about my hand being in the way. So just pop the tube off and then just get it out of your way. Now this oil canister, usually you can just grab this with your hands and spin it off. You know, I hope this one comes that way. If not, then just get yourself a strap wrench and put it on there, and there it is. So this is actually a filter. I'll show you. So this is actually a filter. This is where your natural engine blow-by goes through this filter. You can purchase a new one. We have these on our website. While you're right here, just go ahead and change it out. Makes it nice if once it gets oil soaked. That's where the solids will start processing into the bottle. So go ahead and I would suggest go ahead and changing it. So this, with this canister off, this gives us access to the nut and lock washer that is holding the injection pump to the pump gear. So what we're going to be doing with this shot is we're going to be showing you the keyway on the VP44. Before you pull your VP44, you need your keyway at the 12 o'clock position. This has nothing to do with timing or anything of that nature. There was a little bit of confusion about that in our earlier video. We are putting the keyway at the 12 o'clock position for safety's sake, because when we pull the pump, we don't want the possibility of the key coming dislodged and falling down into the crankcase. This is just making it easier for us not to have that happen. So what I'm going to do with our GoPro here is I'm going to take our shot down and I'm going to show you this keyway at the 12 o'clock position. This is the pump off the truck. Now as you come down on the cover, you'll see the cover is marked for TDC and there's a line in the cover. Okay, as you come down, you will see the actual keyway itself, and I'm going to move up just ever so much, and you can see that keyway that's there pointing towards the top of the 12 o'clock position there. Now the 12 o'clock position that you're seeing right there, that is our keyway, and that is what we're wanting. So we are in good shape. You'll actually notice on this gear, and I can't see it, there is a TDC mark on the gear that is a line, and it'll be around the 7 o'clock position or so. If you're needing the motor to be at TDC, you'll want that mark that is on the gear. You will want it to be at the 12 o'clock position, lined up with this TDC mark that is in the cover, and then that will get you TDC. That's a completely different ball game than what we're working on here. We just want, that is for timing if you were working on doing overhead on the motor. But now all we're worried about is the keyway. There it is with the nut and lock washer on it at the 12 o'clock position. So we can now safely pull our nut and lock washer. All right, now that we have our keyway up, we're ready to pull the nut and the lock washer off of the drive of the VP44 pump. And what this is going to do is this is going to be setting us up to go ahead and pop the gear off of the drive shaft of the VP44. So the nut on the VP44 is 1 1/16. And what I like to do is I like to use a long-handled ratchet, and I just hit it with my hand, and just that'll help you to break the nut loose. Really don't need to lock the motor down or anything like that. This usually works pretty well. If you run into a truck that's been over tightened, then obviously you're going to need to lock the motor down. You can do that a couple different ways. You can you can put a ratchet and socket on the harmonic balancer and hold the motor hold opposite of what you're turning. So, and this is right-handed threaded, so righty tighty, lefty loosey. All right, so we're just going to go ahead and give her a couple wraps here, and that was easy. Okay, so we got that one going. That loosened up really nicely. Didn't have to do anything with the motor there, so we've got it loose. So what we want to do here is we want to go ahead and remove the nut off the pump drive shaft. And what I do is I just take my pointing finger and I just put it on the drive shaft after I get the nut loosened up a little bit more. There's really not enough clearance in the cover for the nut to fall down, but you want to be careful, because if your luck's like mine, damn thing will fall down in there. So I put my finger on the drive shaft of the pump and go ahead and just spin the nut off with my other two fingers. I usually drop the light. I'm usually pretty good about that. You want to watch, because there's a lock washer on this. The lock washer is where it kind of gets tricky. Adam's going to get in there with the assist, grab our light. All right, so here's our nut off this. What I was saying there is you got a lock washer on there as well. The lock washer can definitely fall down in the cover, so you need to be super, super careful with that. So same process here. I just put my finger on the snout and just reach my fingers in there and get the lock washer. I usually drop the light again. Usually goes pretty good like that. If you've got your finger on the snout of the pump, lock washer can't drop in there. So nut and lock washer off the pump, again, that sets us up to be able to pop the gear off the pump. This is our Thoroughbred Diesel pump puller or gear puller that we offer here at Thoroughbreds. This is a really, really nice unit for you guys that are considering buying one of these, that you're working on multiple trucks. This is tool steel, so this thing's going to last you. This isn't just a one-shot deal. Couple of design changes that we do on this to make these to where these will work for all the 5.9 trucks and the common rails as well, 6.7 trucks. So looking for a gear puller, we'd like to see you using our Thoroughbred Diesel gear puller here. So we'll go ahead and use this to pull the gear off of the VP44. I'm going to talk just a little bit about this as well. I don't unbolt the VP44 from the cover before I pop the gear off. I leave all of my nuts and everything on the back of the VP44 and the mounting bracket. I leave everything on it, and I leave the VP44 rigid to the motor. I just feel like it makes it just an easier pull on the gear. So all we're doing is the gear of the VP44, the drive shaft of the VP44 is tapered, so this gear just goes on that tapered shaft. So all we're doing is we're just pulling the gear off the tapered shaft. Now inside of the cover, as long as you've got the timing cover on the truck, the gear is not going to come out of time, so it's not going to jump a tooth or anything like that. You're just popping the gear off here to take your VP44 off. So the VP44 gear has two threaded holes on either side of the VP44 drive shaft. They are both metric 8 by 1.25. So we include nice grade 8 bolts in this kit for you. So we're going to go ahead and show you how to use this here. These are 10 metrics as well, so have a 10 metric ratchet handy. So what I like to do is just hang the pump puller on by one bolt here, and that lets you get it threaded. Now, when you've got the pump at the 12 o'clock position, your threaded holes are going to be on the right and the left-hand side of the pump. Pretty easy to find here. So I'll get my gear puller started a couple threads there. Make sure I got enough clearance to get it onto the snout. And then I will go ahead and take my second bolt, then bring my pump puller up. And then it kind of gets a little bit tricky here. You got to kind of feel around for that next hole. And there you go, voila. So I'll run these in, I'll run these in 2 or 3 threads. I mean, I'll run them in more than 2 or 3 threads. I'll get quite a few turns on the bolts, and you want to alternate that as you go back and forth. You've got your gear puller on the truck. You just want to go ahead and just keep tightening down evenly on this. Again, these are 10 metric headed bolts, and we're going to just keep putting pressure on it. And you heard that little pop there. That's our gear that's gone ahead and popped off. Now you don't want to just keep running this in. I'm just going to just pull on it just a little bit more so I get the gear to come out on the shaft. Just a little more. And that's just getting us farther down on the taper just to make it to where it's super easy for us to get our pump out the backside. So there you go. There's how to use your pump puller. Now in our video that we did 100 years ago, we showed you doing this job using a power steering, steering wheel puller, which is a little T-handled apparatus. Works the same way. You gotta have a couple metric 8 by 1.25 bolts, and then you've got a ram in the middle of it, and then you just run the ram in. This works fine. This is, you know, something that's we offer on our website for you guys to purchase. When you purchase your VP44, you can get it coming with your pump and have it right there when you need to do the job. So we're gonna go ahead and pull this little gear puller off here, and we'll cut back in and we'll kind of show you if we can get a shot of it. Actually, you know what? I probably got that out far enough now. So, yeah. So what I wanted to show you there was you can work that gear up down now. That's telling you that the gear is good and loose. So you can go ahead and remove your gear puller. All right, we're gonna go ahead and show you unbolting the bracket on the VP44. Now there is a bracket on the VP44. So this is the updated bracket for these trucks. This came on the truck standard from 2000 to 2002. The 98 and the 99 trucks had a little bit different bracket. They had a bracket that was actually attached to the block. It was a separate piece, and then it had one bolt going through it into the back of the VP44, or I'm sorry, into the back of another bracket that was attached to the back of the VP44 that held on. So there's only one bolt that you needed to remove to get the VP44 bracket loose to where you can take the VP44 off. That's very confusing. This is a bracket. We get a lot of calls about this bracket because a lot of people will go in, they'll loosen up the 4 nuts that are actually holding the VP44 to the gear cover on the motor. There's 2 of them here and then 2 of them on the bottom. Then they put the gear puller on it. They go to try to taking the gear off, and they're not getting any movement out of anything. The pump won't come off, and they're forgetting about this bracket that's actually on the bottom. So Jim, we're gonna kind of switch over to our GoPro view here, and we have our GoPro that is set up looking directly at the back of the VP44 pump, and then I'm going to reach to these 2 bolts and show you where they are. I'm touching them with both my fingers in that shot. They are 13 metric headed bolts. You just want to go ahead and remove those. And then I'm going to also show here this GoPro. This is the return line. Make sure to not be hitting this too much with a ratchet, because what that does is that compromises the seals on the return line, and you can wind up with a hard start for yourself. So these are pretty tight. Again, 13 metric. We'll go ahead and get these loosened up, and then go ahead and then just remove both of these bolts. So no need to remove the bracket from the pump. We've unbolted it from the block here. Now we're ready to loosen and remove the 4 nuts holding the VP44 to the gear case. So we're going to go ahead and remove the 4 nuts that are left holding the VP44 onto the gear case. Okay, now this shot's going to get a little tricky. We're going to do the best we can with this, but I'm going to kind of point to these with this magnet and show you where the nuts are located on the VP44. Then we're going to show you on the pump basically how it's mounted here. So you have 1, and then you have another nut here. I think Adam's on that with his camera. Okay, and then directly below both of those there are 2 more as well. So there's 4 in total, and they are 15 metric nuts holding this to the gear cover of the pump. I hope that you guys were able to see that as best that you possibly can. Let us show you on a VP44 what those ears look like. Here's our new VP44. You guys probably have already got this on your workbench and you know what you're looking at here. There is a dowel on the gear cover that is an alignment dowel that just centers this. We see a lot of guys put pry bar here and want to pry this off. Do not do that. You don't need to do that. So here are where the studs are coming through for the VP44 with the 15 metric nuts on them. 2 on the top, 2 directly on the bottom right here. So you can see, so you find them, they'll be right down there on the bottom of them. good to go. All right, so let's show you where Adam and I are going to get back to the truck. We're going to show you the extension setup that we like to use. You can use a couple different ways. Something that's really nice if you've got one is a wobble bar with a locking end on it. I don't have a wobble bar with a locking end. I'm asking Santa for one for Christmas, but I am going to use this locking extension. This is, I was looking at it because I think this is a 6-inch extension, and then I'm using a deep 15 metric socket, and it's got just enough looseness on here because of the Craftsman socket. Don't tell anybody. It's got just enough looseness on here to get the articulation that you need. I like to leave the upper 15 metric bolt on here and remove it last. And I'm gonna put a light in there just so you kind of see what I'm talking about there. I like to leave the upper 15 metric bolt or nut and take it off last. I take all the other 3 off first. So that's what we're gonna do here. Just being aware of our lines, and we're gonna go ahead and move through here and just bust these off real quick. The back side of I'm going to talk a little bit and then I'll let Jim kind of fast forward through this. It's nice to have a knurled extension too. It's really nice, and I forgot to do it before I went down into this. If you're worried about losing the nut, you can put a little piece of paper towel or something in the socket to keep it where you can have it. There's the first one. Get on the second one. All right, now we're going after the bottom closest to the block. I just fish my extension in here between the block and the pump, and even with my lines there, I still got enough room for my ratchet. This one is the one you really got to watch because you can drop your nut here real quick. A little bit of rust on this truck, so it's hasn't been cooperating the way that it should. What I'm going to do here. All right, what I was trying to do there was get the paper towel down in the socket so it would hold the nut, but I just went with axle grease, another old school trick. Just throw a little axle grease in the bottom of your socket, and then go back to the nut. And what happens with the grease is when the nut is off the stud, it'll help it to stick inside the socket, and they say that you won't drop it. That's supposed to be how it works there.
You can get any number of extensions that you want here to make it easier for you. I probably have gone just a little bit too short, but I think it's worked for us just fine. All right, there she is. Okay, just kind of drop it out there, and the grease did its job. Kept her nut. Last bolt or last nut is the top one closest to the block. The extension will just about go in the same position on the injection pump. All right, and there we are. This is the last one. Sometimes stuff just fights you for no reason. Here's the last nut. Good to go. All right. So now we just make sure that our backside lines are moved out of the way. All right. And then you should just be able to take the pump and shake the crap out of it. Get it off of the truck. And it's going to be stuck to your cover just a little bit here. She's loose. She's just got 15 plus years of grime holding her in. So gear's still good and loose. Okay, well, what we'll do is we'll get a surprise bar. We'll just put a little gentle love pressure towards the back of it and she'll pop right off. The VP44, and you can see by the camera, this is all real-time stuff, so we're not going to show you a perfect world that falls out because you guys are going to run into problems too. Sometimes you're going to pop the gear off the front of it, take your 4 nuts off the back, unhook your bracket being the key, the operative word here, and the pump just falls out the back. It's not going to happen on this truck. This truck is sat for a long time. So again, make sure you've got all your nuts and your bolts off, get your lines out of the way, your gear's good and free on the front, small block of wood on your timing cover right here, then just take your prize bar and your center Torx bolt right here, just get a prize bar right there, and just please don't tear our cores up, just a little bit backward pressure just like so, and the pump will pop right out. It don't take much, you don't have to get crazy, don't tear nothing up, just be cool, take the pump off. Just that easy. All right, so keep your lines out of your way here. You want to go on, don't dilly-dally with this. When you've got it out, you want to come on straight back with it and get this, you want to get that drive shaft out of the gear case as fast as you can. Keeps you from dropping that key. I'll just keep working backwards. The lines. All right, there. Now, our key's out. Everything's good to go there. We're ready to just turn the drive head up and lift the VP44 out.
All right, we've got our VP44 over here on the bench, and there's a couple things that we've got to do before we get ready to throw the pump back into the new pump into the truck. First thing that you're going to want to do is you want to make sure that you leave the drive shaft of the pump undisturbed, because the location of the key on here is going to be important for us, okay? We're going to be lining that up here in just a second. But first thing that we want to do is we want to remove the bracket from the bottom of the pump. All right, the bracket has two T45 Torx bolts in the bottom of it. I definitely suggest removing them with an impact. It makes it a lot easier. You don't want to try to hold this by itself, so a good impact, zip them both out. All right, and then what you're going to want to do is go ahead and grab your, this is it on your old pump. You're going to want to just get it out of your way, clean up any residual fuel. This is a really good time to leave this pump to where, leave your old pump to where the residual fuel can run out of it, dry it up, because when you pack it up for your core, you want to make sure that you don't have any residual fuel in it, that it is as dry as it can be, because if any fuel runs out of it, the UPS man will bring it back to you. All right, so on your new pump, you've got a goodie bag on the front of it here. It's got your washers and your oil seal for the front of that. We're just going to set that aside here. I'm going to turn this around as best I can see it, and I'm going to zoom in here just a little bit so you can see what we're working with here. All right, so we've got our new pump, we have our old pump, okay? So what I do is I line these up side by side, okay? I look at the position of the keyway on the old pump. The position of the keyway on the old pump, if you take your new pump and you line the drive shaft up as best you can with the old pump, you're gonna have a much, much greater chance of success when you go to reinstall the pump, of hitting the keyway hole in your gear without creeling your key over. So I'm going to zoom in just a little bit more on that, and then I'm going to reposition these pumps where you can see them. All right, perfect. Now I'll turn that shaft off. So as you can see, this is our new pump right here, our old pump right here. You can see on our old pump, to me, this is going to be around at the 1 o'clock position facing backwards. So I'm going to turn my new pump to get that lined up as best I can. And I'm looking at that, eyeballing it. It's just off of that standard on the front. Just about lined up with it. So I'll turn this just a little bit more. And that looks really, really good to me. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn them around here where I can actually see them head on. Well, you can't see those from here, but I look at it head on and see where I'm at, and it looks pretty good to me as well. Here, might need just a fuzz more on this one, and that's going to be close. Now, you don't want to take that as the gospel. You want to make sure that when you're installing this, that you're watching this go into the gear, and you want to make sure that it engages it correctly. I'll zoom back out. And then the final thing that we're going to do while we're here on the bench is go ahead and install our oil sealing ring, O-ring, for the front here. We just open our package up of seals. Go ahead and remove the wire. Grab the O-ring out. Just look at orientation on it, and it fits in the recess on the front of the pump. And when you put it on, it wants to try to roll on you, so you've got to keep working with it to get it correct. So I'll work with that, and then we will go ahead and prep for getting the new pump on the truck. All right, so we got the pumps off the bench now. We just wanted to show one more time before we go in on the truck. The oil seal here, you want to make sure that you get this lined up correctly and don't let it be twisted on there. You want that lined up correctly. And I wanted to show you how I was doing these drive shafts. So what I'll do with the drive shaft is I'll just take it out and look at it, and I'll look at the positioning of the old Keyway, and then I'll turn the shaft on the new pump to correspond with that, get them close. And then that way, when I'm inside of the truck and I'm actually, working with the pump to get it engaged into the Keyway, it's going to be much, much closer like this. So, all right, we're going to get our old pump out of the way. We're going to set it in a approved container and get it draining so all of the fuel can drain out of it. But we're going to go ahead and throw the bolt for the bracket right on the floor, of course, and we're going to turn our VP44 over, and we are going to reinstall the bracket here. The correct amount of ugga-duggas I don't have off the top of my head here, but if you use a good air ratchet like we're doing here, 3/8 drive, should be just fine. There you go. With our O-ring on and our bracket on the bottom of our brand new shiny VP44, we're ready to go back in the truck. The next couple of minutes of our installation video of the VP44 is probably the most important. This is the portion of the video where we're going to talk to you about installing the VP44 and making sure that you hit your Keyway on the truck. So what can happen if you don't hit the Keyway? And because this pump is on a tapered shaft, you can miss the Keyway by a country mile, or you can miss it by just a hair. If you miss it, what happens is the gear is still going to seat because of the tapered shaft, and it's just going to creel, what we call creeling or smash one end of this Keyway. Then the pump is essentially going to be physically out of time. These keys on these pumps, you'll notice that the number that are on the keys, that 036, the 36 is the width of the key. The width of the key has to do with the timing of the pump internally. So if we miss this by just a little bit, this is going to be off. That's going to make it off internally, or it's going to make it off timing wise quite a bit. The pump, the PSG will pick that up. We'll see that because of crank position, and it will know it's out of time. The pump won't fuel correctly, and that's why you have your 216 code that comes with missing the Keyway. So hitting the Keyway is super, super important. All right, you don't want to take the Keyway out of your old pump and put in your new pump. The key that comes with this pump is the key size that this pump is timed to. Leave the key inside the pump when you receive the pump. All right, so now we're going to go through some things that we do here at the shop to make sure that we engage the gear correctly with the Keyway. Just everything that you can do here to make this easier on you and to make the job go better, keeps you from having to pull the truck back apart to get a smashed Keyway out of it. Okay, the first thing we like to do, and we talked about in the clip before, we talked about the alignment of the Keyway. Nice thing to do, set your old pump up here and align the Keyway in the new pump with the position of the Keyway of the old pump. That really makes it nice for you. You'll test fit it up, and you'll fit it to the gear as you're going in, and you may see, hey, I'm off just a little bit. Before you pull the gear in, you want to bring it back out and reposition it. Before we do all that, what I like to do is I like to take a paint pen and I like to paint the Keyway on the pump. It makes the Keyway easier to see for everything that we're going to be doing on installation. If you don't have a paint pen at home, don't worry. Go into your girlfriend's medicine closet or whatever they call them and grab some nail polish. You're not getting style points for this. We just need to get some color on the key so we can see it as best we can. You want to make sure that you get some of that color on the front of the Keyway as well so that you can see it from the front of the truck. And I'll even go so far as turn the pump up like this, and I'll grab a machinist rule. I'll lay the machinist rule up against the Keyway. I'll come down here on the shaft and make a mark. Then I'll take it on the other side of the key flatten it out, finish up the other side of my mark, and then that gives me a nice point of reference line when you're looking at the keyway from the front of it as to where the key is located, so you can see it from the front of the gear as well. So you can kind of see where I did that on the front of the gear. It gives you just another point of reference of what you need to do, because hitting the keyway again on this super important. So with everything done here, we are ready to go ahead and get started with our VP44 installation. All right, so now we're going to talk about some things that you can do while you've got your VP44 out that would just be good preventative work to do on the truck. First and foremost, tappet cover. Tappet cover gasket is one of the top oil leaks that happen on the 12 and 24 valve trucks. This is a really good time to replace the tappet cover gasket. You're already right there. All you've got to do is drop the ECM off of it, and voila, there it is. So tappet cover gasket's one to think about. You're right here at your power steering pump and your vacuum pump, so this would be a really good time to do one of our reseal kits that we have on the website. That's another very common oil leak on these trucks. So you can knock out two very common oil leaks when you do a VP44 if you do your vacuum pump seal kit and your tappet cover seal. And then thirdly, your cam position sensor. Cam position sensors on these trucks very rarely go bad. We talked about this in one of our installation videos, but it does happen. If you want to prevent that, grab yourself a cam position sensor. You're right here at it. Change it out with the VP44 off. You can do it with the VP44 on, but again, this is just a nicer time for it. So one thing that we like to do here, getting ready to install a VP44 pump, I talk about this return line. I just don't like to disturb this washer back here at the teeth of the return line, so I work with it inside the truck. It's okay. If you don't like that, go ahead and take it off and just remove it and get it out of your way if you don't feel comfortable with it being in there. But these three injection lines, the 3, 5, and 6 lines, they do not need to come off, but they are going to have to stay out of your way to just make your life a little bit easier. I take an intake bolt and 2 washers, put them in the intake here, and then what I'll do is I'll just push the lines over, and then I'll tighten the bolt and washer down here. And what that does is that just keeps this line pack out of your way when you're trying to insert your pump, and the less headache that you have, the more likely you are to hit your keyway correctly, which we talked about is so important. So tighten that down. That keeps those lines pretty well out of your way. You still got to fight with them just a little bit, but nothing too awful bad. All right, time to go ahead with the VP44. What I like to do is I like to make sure that my gear is pushed to the back, okay? You can pull it all the way forward, you can push it back. I like for it to be pushed to the back. I like to, when I'm installing my VP44, I like to be able to see my key engage it from the back. There's just enough room for this. We're not gonna be able to get a shot of this on the camera. We're gonna try to show you some GoPro shots of the front, but this is, you just pull the gear back all the way, and then you can see the keyway inside of there, and there you are. All right, the VP44, when you go to lay it in, before you do this, I put a light little bit of grease on the oil ring, just makes it cinch up easier. And when I'm installing it, high install, I put the ass end of the pump down, just kind of guide it past all of our lines here. Just keep working to get it in. Don't put too much strain on the lines. You want to watch your cam position sensor wire as well. Okay, that cam position sensor wire can really get you too, so just be watching that as you're going forward. Okay, so now I've got the drive shaft engaged to the gear, so I want to make sure that the gear is back as far as it can be. And then I am going to take one of Adam's little lights here and look at my positioning of the keyway. Looks pretty good there. So I'm just going to go ahead and keep moving the pump forward.
what we're doing. We're just getting everything as lined up as we can. This here that's giving me fits. All right, so just have to keep fooling with it. But once you've got everything lined up, you can go ahead and back the pump back out just a little bit. And what you want to do there is I try to hit my keyway from the back as best I can. And let's see by the light. Turn the fancy little pin light on here. Yep, that's perfect. That's what you want. All right, and that is something that we're gonna have to show you from the front now, but going from the back of the pump, engaging the gear, very, very critical that you start working on your alignment from the back, because when you're working on your alignment from the back, you can see that keyway pretty well. Having topside creeper makes it so much nicer too. You guys that are doing this in your driveway that don't have a topside creeper, I know I'll say stuff like this in some of these videos, but it's hard for you guys to do it all the time. So I'm going to take on my bottom mounting bracket, what I like to do is just put the two 13 metric bolts in on the bottom of the pump, and all this is doing is hold your VP44 in position. You're going to kind of, as you snug up your gear on the front of it, this will draw everything in, but for right now, throwing those two bolts on the back really make it nice when you're working on checking your alignment on the front. So we're going to get our GoPro set up and show you the keyway engaged in the gear in the front. Okay, we're going to take you in the truck now. We're going to show you that the keyway is engaged in the gear, and we're going to show you by the paint marks what you're looking at with this. So we're going to take this in and just show you. So this is a headlong shot of the pump without the nut and the lock washer on it, obviously. So you can see the paint inside the keyway there. You can kind of see our mark on the front for orientation. Shows us you're right there in the area, but really what tells the story is that keyway in there. See that painted key and how that's really nicely engaged into that. That's what you're looking for. Now, how do you find that? You don't have a GoPro at home to be able to do this, so what do you look for? Okay, so I'm gonna give Adam the GoPro here and he's gonna show you. You're looking for a inspection mirror like so, and a pin light. And with that, Adam's going to try to take a stab at seeing this. You can see this with your inspection mirror and your pin light really well. You would just check it like that, and we got too much glare in there, so you can't see it. But
let me switch cameras.
Uh-oh, little camera switcheroo here.
So with this, we're showing, you know, this is what you're looking for. You get it with an inspection mirror. With your human eye, you're going to be able to see it. So we're going to be able to, we're there, and you're going to be able to see it when you guys are working on the truck. So, you know, we showed you what you need to see there with our little GoPro shot. So to verify this, we go a step farther to verify this. We actually take the nut and put it on the snout of the VP44, and we'll actually draw the VP44 into the gearway, because remember I told you it's a tapered shaft. So we just put the nut on here real quick and draw it up. A couple of turns. GoPro still running into that. Okay. And let me draw it up a couple turns, and we'll switch back over to it real quick. So what I'm doing is I'm tightening up the nut on the front of the VP44, which is drawing the tapered shaft up into the gear, and I'll just pull it about a couple times there to where it gets tight. Pull the nut back off real quick. And when you draw it up into the gear, this really will give you a really nice shot of what the keyway properly engaged in the gear is supposed to look like. Light on, GoPro headed in here, and there's what you're looking for. So you can see now that we've brought that up, you can see that the gear is, you can really see that keyway in there. Nice and flush inside there, both sides, filling up the hole. You've got good engagement there. You can go forward with your installation. All right, we want to go ahead and we did our preliminary tightening on the nut, on the shaft nut, and drew everything up there. And then we've obviously got we've got our two nuts for the mounting bracket end. We want to go ahead and we want to release our injection pump lines now, so because we don't want to leave those with pressure on them, so we'll go ahead and let them come to rest. Then you just want to make sure that you're positioning the pump and getting it as close to the mounting flange as possible, if not all the way, because you really just don't want to draw the pump all the way up with the nuts. But go ahead and install your 4 nuts on the injection pump, so pretty much installation is reverse of removal, but we're not going to leave you hanging like that. Tightening your rear nuts to the mounting flange, the 4 nuts to the mounting flange. These are going to be at 32 foot-pounds, and then your 2 13 metric headed mounting bolts at the bottom of the pump, they are going to be to 18 foot-pounds. You're going to want to tighten the 4 mounting nuts up at the gear cover before you do your final tighten on the bracket here. Once you have your 4 nuts on your VP44, mounting it to the timing cover, so we've got those on, tightened down the 32 foot-pounds. Then you have your 2 bolts on the bracket, mounting it to the block, and those are tightened down to 18 foot-pounds. We're going to go ahead and put our nut and lock washer on the front of the pump. Remember, like I was telling you, when you go to put the lock washer on it, make sure you got your finger there on the shaft so you can keep from dropping the lock washer down inside the case. You don't have to worry about that with the nut. And then you're going to put these on. You will torque this nut and lock washer down to 125 foot-pounds. If the motor turns over on you while you're doing this, then you just need to go ahead and grab, if you have your barn tool, grab a barn tool, or hold it by the harmonic balancer, whatever you got to do. But make sure you get this to 125 foot-pounds so that you don't have any problems with your VP44 slipping time. All right, now that we've got our nut and lock washer on the front of the VP44 and tightened up, we're going to go ahead and put our oil breather back on. And when this goes back on and it tightens up, it's going to orient with the port for the hose up staring at you like that. So then we'll just take our hose, our overflow hose, and put it on and slide the clamp back down.
All right, now we're going to go ahead and start working on getting our lines on the pump. So we're going to be working with our number 3, 5, and 6 lines that are on the that are still on the truck. So we'll go ahead and get those on. I'll leave the caps on the injection pump. If you don't care, take these caps and put them on your core for your core shipment, and that'll be one more level of protection to get your core back to us without any fuel coming out of it. So lining your lines up on the pump is really not, it's not that hard. You just want to go ahead and get everything lined up. So you want the lines engaging the delivery valves on the back of the pump here. You don't want them to be offset or anything like that. You just want them straight on there. So remember, it's easier to do the line nuts one at a time so you can get to them. In fact, when you go back on here with these, what's easiest is actually to do this middle line before you do the other two, and that way you can access the top and the bottom one much easier. So we'll go ahead and do this middle one first, and then we'll do our tops and our bottoms, and then we'll be ready for our other pack. All right, we're gonna go ahead and put our second injection line pack on here. This is cylinders 1, 2, and 4. So on this one, I just go ahead and kind of line everything up on top side and get just look at everything, see where it's at. Then go ahead and start attaching it on the pump. And I'll start with my bottom one first, tighten it up, and then work my way around just like on the other ones. So nothing too shocking here. Oh, if you're wondering about torque on the lines, on the injection lines, if you want to torque them down, we just snug them down. You know, if you don't have a leak, they're tight enough. 18 foot-pounds is the official spec on that. When you're working with the lines on the on the head side, and this is the line alignment into the feed tube is what we're worried about here. So if the lines are outside of the feed tube, kind of like I've got right here, let's see if you can see it on camera. You go to put your nut on here, it's not going to line up right. You can cross thread the nut, so you've got to be very, very careful in what you do here. So you want that line engaged into the feed tube just like so. Now this is the number 1, 2, and 4 injection line. We bleed the systems when we do an injection pump at the number 1, 3, and 4 cylinders. It's just because they're easy to get to. So that means that our number 2 cylinder here, we're going to go ahead and fully tighten it down. So check its alignment with the feed tube. Take your line nut, back it up a couple of threads if it gives you any trouble. And go ahead and engage it into the threads of the head. Should go in fine with you. You should be able to run this all the way down to snug with your fingers. If you can't, then the threads are either boogered up a little bit, or you just need to clean them up, or just do your due diligence. Make sure you don't cross thread it. So go ahead and tighten that up at the head. But while I'm here and I can see everything, I'm going to go ahead and loosen up my number 3 injector. And when we tell people to loosen these injectors up for the bleeding procedure, you just loosen them like that right there. So here's tight. To loosen them, you just loosen them a full turn so you can get fuel past them. That's all you got to do there. Come back here to the number 4 cylinder, just snug it down, and then back it off a turn for bleeding, and there you go. But the most important thing there that you want to make sure that you do is you tighten down the number 2 cylinder, because when the air intake horn is back on here, you can't get to it. So go ahead and tighten up number 2. Then we're going to go back and we're going to put our 3 bolts in, our 3 10 metric headed bolts. They're going to go in here that hold our line pack down. All right, next we're going to do our overflow bolt on the VP44 pump. This bolt is your return fuel that goes back to the tank. This bolt, we need yours back on your core. So when you remove it from your stock pump, please send it back to us. So this is the orifice that is closest to the radiator. And when you take this plug off, you're going to have some test fluid that's going to leak out of this. So go ahead and set your overflow bolt up. Go ahead and put one of the sealing washers on it. We include those in the kit. So we will go ahead and pull the plug out here. You can use this to seal your pump back up before you send it back to us, please do. Throw your overflow bolt in the line, put a sealing washer on the other side of it, and then just line it up on the pump. This is another one of those things where you want to make sure that you get this threaded correctly. Should tighten in by hand all the way. All right, we're going to loosen it up just a little bit because this is part of our bleeding procedure as well. So just want to loosen that up just a little bit. All right, so there is our overflow or our return line attached to the pump. So we're going to go ahead and set our fuel canister in. This is a 98 truck, so your 98 and your 99s have a different fuel filter canister on them. So if you're looking at this and you've got an 01 truck, it's not going to be the same, but process is still going to be the same. So we're going to go ahead and set our fuel filter canister back in here and throw our bolts in and just snug them down. You want to make sure that you get your fuel heater wire. This is the water and fuel sensor, and then our fuel heater wire is coming off of the back. Sorry, Adam. Where did that go? There it is. All right. Then we have our fuel heater wire here. We're just going to plug in real quick as well, and then it actually attaches back to your engine oil dipstick. And the inside here, if you can get it. And I'm here, I'm fighting it. I know nobody puts it back, but I'm going to try to put it back. There you go. All right. So we'll want to replace our banjo bolt on the top of the fuel filter canister here. All right, and then on your connection at the pump, you've got another plug in it. Go ahead and remove the plug, but as you do that, you want to have your new supply bolt ready to go. We include the new washers for your supply bolt. So I've already got this one on the back side. You'll have your greatest amount of test fluid will come from this side of the pump, just like so. Have your bolt ready. Washer on the other side of it, and then just go ahead and finger tighten it into the pump like so. Now we will actually tighten this side up because we bleed from the return side on the pump, so we're going to go ahead and just grab our 11/16 here and tighten this side up, and then of course we'll tighten it at the fuel filter canister as well. Have that ready to go. And then we can actually go ahead, while we're here, just go ahead and slap in our electrical connector for our VP44. So you want to have the connector open and then push it on, and then as you close the connector, it'll pull in to the VP44. You want that closed completely, so there's that. All right, so our next step in our installation process is go ahead and put our APPS sensor on. But before we do that, you really want to go ahead and clean up the gasket area for your grid heater. Now, the good old 396, 99, 88s Cummins gaskets, what we use. They are a thermal style gasket, so they're not your normal paper style. These are a genuine OE. Cummins gasket is what we like to use. They're a thermal style gasket is what I call them. This is the gasket that you want to use for the air transfer connection. So you want to go ahead and get all of this gasket material scraped off of the intake plate here. And the reason why you want to do that before the APPS sensor comes on is just because you've got better access to it here. Leave your rag down the manifold to catch all the debris. and we're just going to go ahead and go around and clip this gasket off. All right, we're going to go ahead and hook our APPS sensor up now, or our throttle position sensor, bell crank sensor, whatever you want to call it. Don't forget, when you swing this over here, you want to have your connection ready for this. Then I'm going to show you another little trick here that you want to make sure that you take care of. So just go ahead and bring your APPS over, or your throttle position sensor over, and then get your electrical connector hooked up here. If you forget your electrical connector on here, what happens is start the truck up, everything idles really nice, really smooth, and then all of a sudden the damn thing won't take throttle. Kind of embarrassing. You don't want to do that. So there we are. I'm going to throw our 3 bolts in here, get ready to tighten those down. But the one thing that you're going to want to watch out here for is vacuum lines for your cruise control and your 4-wheel drive. It never fails while you're working on this and you're in this area, you're going to have one of these vacuum lines pop out. Here's the vacuum line. It's come out for my cruise control. So you just come back here to the T that it goes back into and hook it back up. This is especially this is a note for everybody, but this is really, really important for you shop guys. This is the last thing you want to do. You don't want your customers coming in, you're doing a job for them, putting a VP44 on, and then they have to bring it back because their 4-wheel drive doesn't work, which would be this vacuum line right here, or their cruise control doesn't work, and they put that on you, so you don't want any problems. So just go ahead and get all that hooked back up. So we're gonna go ahead and tighten down our throttle position sensor. All right, so we got our mounting surfaces cleaned up for our grid heater and our air transfer connection. So again, good old 396, 99, 88. I say that all the time because it's one of these Cummins numbers that, because I'm a nerd, I've memorized. So make sure you get your towel out of your intake after you've done all your cleaning. Look for debris down in here. Make sure you get everything cleaned out. Very important. All right, lay your first gasket down. Go ahead and flip your grid heater over. You just want to keep everything lined up with the gasket and the intake as best you can. And turn that up. All right, now we're going to go ahead and set our air transfer in. Make sure you pull your rag out of that one as well. Remember, we did this as one assembly. Go ahead and get it in the intercooler boot. Now did it. This is always so much easier said than done. All right. Just want to make sure that you get your intercooler boot on the pipe correctly. Just feel around it. All right, there's that. Then you grab your second 396, 99, 88 gasket. You lay it on here. You line your intake up. Grab some bolts. And remember, with your intake bolts here, kids, you've got the 2 longs and the 2 shorts. The shorts go on the small side. Don't forget your ground wire right there. And this is kind of a little chest match when you're lining all this up, because you're lining up grid heater, air intake, and 2 gaskets. The gaskets usually are what prove to be the problem, just like right now. Gasket stickle is nice here, and I forgot to do that. So what I'm going to do here real quick is I'm going to take my intake bolts and get everything lined up. Get everybody lined up and get everybody where they're supposed to be here. All right. Now, put a long one in the back corner. There you go. Now, you get a short one in the front. If you get 2 corners caught, you've got her licked. Just like so. There you are. All right, so we're gonna go throw our other 2 intake bolts in here. And get everything snug down. Just keep working at it. Don't let the gasket jump out the side on you, because you will have an air leak here and you don't want that. All right, on our air intake, the torque spec on the air intake is 18 foot-pounds on the 4 bolts. With these 4 bolts for the air intake, you want to make sure that you get the ground wire for the heater attached here, so you're good there. Remember, we brought this assembly all out in one shot, the tube and everything, so you just want to make sure that you go through all of your clamps and tighten everything back up on your intercooler boot. The one down on the intercooler, it's easier to access it through this front here. You've got a nice little access slot where you can get right to the clamp, so it makes that easy. Really, our last thing on the installation is to go ahead and put our dipstick down onto the intake, as Cummins likes to call it, the oil gauge. So that's the last bolt in our kit here. It's the shortest 10 metric head, and we'll go ahead and install it and tighten it down. So really, as far as the mechanical portion of our installation of a VP44, this is it. We're done. We're ready to start our bleeding procedure. What Adam and I are going to do is we're going to actually change the filter on this truck, because in doing this we realized that we did not have an installation video for changing the filter on a 98 and 99 truck. So that's what we're going to do, and we're going to link you inside of this video to the fuel filter change. Anytime you put on a new VP44, I don't care if you put a new fuel filter on it the day before. We always like to put a fuel filter on these trucks, so you've got a good clean fuel filter for first startup with the injection pump. It is a very important point. So this really is everything done. Remember, right now you want to make sure that you have left the number 1, 3, and 4 injector lines loosened up, because we will be bleeding from there. So we have left those all loose so we can accomplish our bleeding on startup. And that's another video that we're going to do, is we're going to show you how to do the proper bleeding procedure on these trucks for first startup with the VP44. So there's going to be a couple of different videos inside of here, inside of this video, and it's part of the learning about this. So save for putting the battery cables back on our batteries, this is going to complete the mechanical portion or the installation portion of the VP44 on this truck. So remember, again, we're going to link you inside this video to the fuel filter change, which we're going to do here, and then we're going to come back and we're going to show you bleeding procedure on this and getting the truck running. All right, you have your VP44 installed. It is time to start the truck. Now we're going to talk through a couple of different things that you want to do here before you go through your cranking sequence to get the truck running. The first thing that I suggest that you do is to have a fuel pressure gauge. Now, I'm not going to beat a dead horse here. We tell you all the time, the most important part of a 98 to 02 vehicle is to have a fuel pressure gauge. So I hope
that if you're watching this, you already have a fuel pressure gauge installed. If you don't, you should. For this exercise, we have put a fuel pressure gauge on the outside of the truck so we can talk about what's happening with the fuel system as it's happening, okay? So we've got a fuel pressure gauge up here that's going to show you positive fuel pressure. The second most important thing that you have to do when you install a VP44 is you have to change the fuel filter before you do your initial startup of the truck. Fuel contamination is a very, very real thing. And the worst part about diesel fuel is when you have water in diesel fuel, it's going to wreck a fuel system. Water is always sitting on the bottom of the tank, and it's always the first thing to be picked up by your lift pump that is processed to your VP44 the first thing. So you don't want fuel contamination. It's going to void your warranty. You're going to have a non-running truck. If it is the reason that took out the VP44 that you have changed, you've got to correct that issue. So we always recommend, first and foremost, you have to change the fuel filter before you start the truck. And secondly, and we really suggest this to be the first thing and most important thing, is we suggest that you drop the tank and drain the tank, get the contamination out of it, or get the contaminants out of the tank. Okay. So your sequence, you can totally start a VP44 truck after a VP44 install by yourself. But let me tell you something, it makes the job a heck of a lot harder. It's much, much easier if you have somebody to help you, like we have Mr. Vince Arnold today helping us do the cranking on the truck. He's going to give you a nice wave there. And it just lets you stay out here so you can understand what's going on. Now, so our bleeding procedure actually starts at the VP44. We want to make sure that we get all of the air out of the VP44 before we do a full cranking sequence, sending the air and the fuel, the entrapped air and the fuel up to the injectors. But we're going to bleed it at the VP44 first. This is very important. Always good to have an outside pressure gauge just like this on these 98, 99 trucks. Super, super easy to catch a fuel pressure reading, especially if you got your stock filtration canister on there, because they've got the 1/8 27 MPT bungs right in the top of the canister. So here we go. All right, so Vince is going to do, he's going to turn the key on, he's going to initially energize the truck. And when he does that, you're already going to hear the lift pump is going to energize for a couple of seconds. So we know that we have a working lift pump. That's a good thing. So now what Vince is going to do is he's just going to bump the starter, and I'll give him a cue here in just a second. When he bumps the starter, at that time Adam's going to look up here to the fuel pressure gauge. So we're going to be looking for fuel pressure at the gauge. If you don't have an outside fuel pressure gauge, you're going to want to watch for return flow, or you want to watch for fuel flow at the return banjo bolt, and it's actually going to run down the line and be dripping back here. So you want to have a container underneath the truck. I said a lot of things here. We're looking for fuel at the VP44. Okay, Vince, go ahead and bump the starter. All right, you can see as Vince has bumped it, we're having fuel pressure come up here. So this means we have a live lift pump, which is beautiful. We're gonna look back down here on the fuel return line. We don't have any dripping fuel yet, which means the canister is filling. Check a line here. All right. All right, give us another bump, Vince. So your lift pump runs another cycle. We pick pressure back up. Now, Adam, look at the VP44 there. You see air bubbles coming out of the VP44. I'm going to give you a little bit more light here. I actually probably took the light away. Got it. There it is. So you can kind of see the fuel flow and the fuel dripping coming out of the return line. That means we have fuel at the VP44. So we're good. So we're going to go ahead and tighten down our return line now, which is going to take me just a second. Talk amongst yourselves. So that took 2 cycles on a good healthy lift pump to do that. If you don't have fuel flow here, or you do not have positive fuel pressure, this is an all stop. You're gonna have to stop right there, and you're gonna have to figure out your lift pump situation. This is very important. This is the #1 reason that it kills VP44s, and it's another #1 reason why VP44 trucks do not start, is because they do not have positive fuel pressure to them to get them running. So now we are ready for full cranking cycle, and we're going to go to the injector lines, and Adam's going to get focused on the #1 line here. I think that's going to be the best line for him to be able to see fuel flow at. Now,
We always tell you open up number 1, 3, and 4, and we tell you that because those are actually the easiest lines to get to. So that's what we've got today. We've got the number 1, the number 3, and the number 4 lines loosened up. Now in your cranking sequence, you want to crank for about 3 seconds, and then you want to pause. So 3, 2, 1, and pause. And that lets your starter cool down, that lets the fuel system keep up, that lets everything just kind of cool off. So that's what we're going to do. As you start to see fuel flow, let your cranking person know, hey, stop. When you see fuel, pulsing fuel come out of these lines, we're going to stop the cranking man. We're going to go ahead and tighten that line down, because the faster we get lines shut down, the quicker that the VP truck is going to start, okay? All right, Vince, go ahead and crank 3 seconds. Again. Oh, so we've got it at 1. Give me another crank, Vince. 3 seconds, please, sir. Good. All right, so you saw the pulsing fuel right there at number 1. You also heard a truck that tried to start there. I also saw it at line number 4 here. All right, 3 seconds. Oh, all right, so I've got it at 4. At this point, we want to check for positive fuel pressure here, because we want to make sure that we're holding good fuel pressure while the lift pump is running. So as I'm going to do this, Adam's going to look out at the fuel gauge. We got fuel pressure, Adam? We're in good shape. All right. I had that line a little bit too loose. Okay. All right, Vince, 3 seconds, please. Another 3 seconds. Again. Go ahead and go for 5 seconds, please. Okay. We've got pulsing fuel there. I'm going to go ahead and shut this line down, because this will have us pulsing. Okay. All right, we got fuel everywhere. All right, Vince, good long 5-second crank, please, sir. Let our fuel pressure come up. All right, go ahead. Trying to. I'm going to open one back up here. Again. All right, go ahead and crank it, Vince. Oh. All right, go ahead and crank it. You go ahead and stay with it, Vince, when that happens. Oh, we got a little bit of air trapped still, so we're gonna go back to 3 here. When a truck's trying to start like that, it's still processing air through. So let's go to 3. Vince, just give me 5 seconds cranking, please. Oh. This has been a really good example of what to do on how to bleed a truck out. All right, go ahead. This is
Completely normal way for the truck to run when it first starts. It's going to have a little bit of a chop to it. We like for the truck to run for a minute. This is really kind of the secret to it. Let it run, let it just come and level out, and then you just want to kind of tap the throttle on it. You can actually see the truck's already starting to smooth out. You can kind of hear it. You want to make sure that you've got good lift pump pressure. It's all I want you to do is just tap the throttle. I'm not talking about wrap it up to 200, 500, just tap it again. Okay, tap it and hold it at about 1200 RPM. Now, we got a smoothed out truck. So just touching the throttle like that, revving it up to 11, 12, 1300 RPMs just lets the truck smooth out. It lets the air process through the system. And at this point right here, you should have a smooth running truck. You should have positive lift pump pressure. You should have a smooth running truck, and don't worry about the codes that are in the truck. That was another thing that I want to talk to you about. When you do this install, if the truck had codes in it before, those codes are going to follow over. Just because you put a new VP44 in, it doesn't mean that the codes go away. You actually have to clear the codes and get those codes out. So now that's what you do at this time. You've got positive fuel pressure. The truck sounds very smooth and very good. At this point, you'll want to go ahead and clear the codes out of the truck, and you drive it at this point. So you take it out, you drive it normal. Don't beat on it, don't do anything, just take it out, drive it. When you bring it back, you want to make sure that you have checked over everything, checked over your installs, make sure you didn't miss anything, make sure you don't have any fuel leaks, and remember, keep watching that lift pump pressure. This is the most important thing. This is what's going to keep your VP44 alive, and it's what's going to keep you to where you don't have to do VP44 installations all the time. All right, Vince, go ahead and kill it. Well, kids, that's our newest and updated VP44 installation video. It's been how many years, Adam? It's been 12 plus years since we did the last one, wasn't it? 13.
I can't math.
It was a long time ago. It was a long time ago. So this is the updated version of that. If you got any questions about VP44 installations, this is our bread and butter. Don't hesitate. Pick up the phone and call us. We'll be glad to walk you through any of it. Any of our technicians can help you. Yeah, so that's it. Like and subscribe to our channel, and we very much appreciate you watching. Also, inside of this video, we're going to link you to changing fuel filters. We already had it done on this truck. Adam and I are going to link you to that inside this video. So if you have a 98, 99 truck, we have a fuel filter installation video for that. And also for a 2000, 2002 guys, we have a fuel filter installation for that. And Jim can find that here in there, tag you to. So thanks for watching.